The Great Crystal of Eldoria was not just a legend whispered by the village elders of Oakhaven. It was the heartbeat of the forest itself. For generations, the glowing emerald shard had rested atop the spire of Whispers, ensuring that the rivers ran clear, the trees grew tall, and the animals spoke in the gentle language of the wind. But on the night of the moonless eclipse, the spire went dark. Finn, a 10-year-old with hair the color of autumn leaves and a knack for fixing things that were never meant to be fixed, stood at the edge of the great ravine. In his satchel, he carried a rusted compass, a half-eaten apple, and a map drawn on a frayed piece of parchment he'd found in his grandfather's attic. "You're really going, aren't you?" a voice chirped from the shadows. Out stepped Maya, Finn's best friend and the fastest climber in 3 kingdoms. She was tightening the laces on her leather boots, her eyes bright with the kind of mischief that usually ended in a lecture from the village council. "The forest is turning gray, Maya," Finn said, pointing to a nearby oak whose leaves were curling into ash. "If someone doesn't find where the crystal went, Oakhaven won't be here by next winter." "Then it's a good thing I brought the rope," Maya said, patting a coil of shimmering silk at her hip. "And don't look now, but we have a stowaway." From Finn's oversized coat pocket, a pair of long, velvet ears poked out. Barnaby, a pocket-sized rabbit with the peculiar ability to sense magnetic north, sniffed the air nervously. He didn't speak in words, but the way he thrust his tail against Finn's ribs said clearly, "The Shadow Mountains are that way, and I don't like them one bit." The Whispering Woods. Their journey began at the threshold of the Whispering Woods. To most, these woods were a place of beauty, but without the crystal's light, the trees had become defensive. Branches reached out like gnarled fingers, and the mist clung to their ankles like cold, wet wool. "The map says we need to follow the silver thread," Finn muttered, tapping the compass. The needle was spinning wildly. "But the silver thread is a river, and the river has dried up." They followed the empty, stony bed of the river deep into the heart of the woods. As they walked, the silence became heavy. Even the birds had stopped singing. Suddenly, the ground beneath Maya's feet gave way. "Finn!" she shrieked. Finn lunged, grabbing her hand just as she slipped into a hidden cavern. Together, they tumbled down a natural stone slide, landing with a soft thud on a bed of glowing blue moss. They weren't in a cave, they were in a library. Not a library of books, but a library of memories. Floating spheres of light drifted through the air, each containing a tiny, moving image of the forest's history. "Who enters the archive of roots?" a booming voice echoed. An ancient turtle, whose shell was covered in miniature saplings and tiny waterfalls, lumbered toward them. This was Elder Mossback, the keeper of the forest's secrets. "We're looking for the crystal," Finn said, stepping forward despite his trembling knees. "It was stolen." Mossback let out a long, wheezing sigh. "Stolen? No, young one. The crystal did not leave. It fled. It sensed a darkness growing in the Shadow Mountains, a shadow weaver who seeks to turn all light into cold iron. The crystal hid itself in the echoing canyons, but it is fatting. If it is not returned to the spire within 3 sunrises, its light will go out forever." The trial of the echoing canyons. Armed with a glowing vial of liquid moonlight, gifted by Mossback, the trio emerged from the caverns and began the arduous climb toward the echoing canyons. The air grew thin, and the wind began to howl, sounding like human voices mocking their progress. "It's just the wind," Maya whispered, though she gripped Finn's sleeve. "Is it?" Finn asked. As they entered the canyon, the walls began to vibrate. Every step they took was echoed back 100 times louder. When Maya gasped, the sound returned as a roar. "We have to be silent," Finn signaled with a finger to his lips. But silence wasn't enough. The canyon was a maze of illusions. They saw shimmering lakes that were actually pits of quicksand and heard the voices of their parents calling them back to the village. Barnaby, the rabbit, proved his worth here. He ignored the sights and sounds, keeping his nose pressed to the ground, following the faint, sweet scent of the crystal's magic. They reached the center of the canyon, where a bridge of pure glass spanned a bottomless chasm. In the middle of the bridge sat a shadow wraith, a creature made of smoke and jagged edges. "Give me the moonlight," the wraith hissed, its voice vibrating in their very teeth, "and I will let you pass." Finn looked at the vial. He knew the moonlight was their only way to reignite the crystal. He looked at Maya, who was already reaching for her climbing picks. "We don't bargain with shadows," Finn said firmly. He didn't use a sword. He used his satchel. He pulled out a small, polished mirror he used for signaling. As the wraith lunged, Finn uncorked the vial of liquid moonlight just a crack and aimed the reflection at the creature. The concentrated beam of pure light pierced the smoke. The wraith shrieked and dissipated into the wind. The peak of the Shadow Spire. The final climb was the hardest. The Shadow Mountains were jagged and black, like the teeth of a giant. At the very top stood the Shadow Weaver's fortress, a jagged tower of obsidian. They found the crystal trapped inside a cage of cold iron. It was dim, pulsing like a failing heart. Standing before it was the Weaver, a figure draped in tattered midnight silk. "You are small," the Weaver laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "The world is changing. Light is weak, iron is strong." "Light isn't just about brightness," Maya shouted, leaping onto a chandelier and swinging toward the iron cage. "It's about warmth." While Maya distracted the Weaver with her acrobatic leaps, Finn scrambled toward the cage. He realized his tools couldn't break cold iron. He needed something else. He looked at Barnaby, who was shivering. "Barnaby, the compass," Finn whispered. The compass needle was made of the same material as the Spire of Whispers. Finn used the needle to pick the lock of the cage, a delicate, frantic dance of fingers. Click. The door swung open. Finn grabbed the crystal, but it was cold. It was dying. "Use the moonlight," Maya yelled, dodging a blast of shadow. Finn poured the entire vial of liquid moonlight onto the crystal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a spark. A warmth bloomed in Finn's palms. The crystal didn't just glow, it roared with light. The Shadow Weaver vanished, unable to exist in such purity. The obsidian tower began to crumble. "Jump," Finn cried. Maya grabbed Finn. Finn grabbed Barnaby, and they leapt from the crumbling balcony into the swirling mists below. The return. They didn't fall to their deaths. Instead, they were caught by the great eagles of the north, summoned by the crystal's sudden flare of power. As they soared over the whispering woods, they saw the gray fatting. The green was returning in a wave, following the shadow of the eagles. The riverbeds began to gurgle with fresh water. They landed at the Spire of Whispers just as the sun began to rise on the third day. Finn placed the crystal back into its cradle. The stone hummed, a deep, resonant note that vibrated through the ground and into the soles of their boots. The village of Oakhaven woke up to a world restored. Finn and Maya sat on the edge of the spire, watching the sunrise. Barnaby was fast asleep in Finn's lap, his nose twitching contentedly. "So," Maya said, nudging Finn with her elbow, "what's in the attic for next weekend?" Finn smiled, looking down at his rusted compass, which was finally pointing true. "I think I saw a map of the sunken city of Azure, but maybe we should finish our homework first." Maya laughed, the sound echoing through the vibrant, living trees. "Homework can wait, adventure doesn't." That was a fantastic start. You've set the stage perfectly with the glowing fireflies atmosphere and a classic Portal fantasy hook. Arjun feels like a relatable hero, just brave enough to be Dee. Part 2. The Girl with the Silver Spear. Arjun's sneakers skidded on sand that felt less like beach grit and more like crushed velvet. Behind him, the roar echoed again, a deep, vibrating sound that felt like it was coming from the earth itself rather than a throat. He didn't look back. He dived into a thicket of ferns that were the color of neon emeralds. The leaves were soft and cool, smelling faintly of cinnamon. "Left, go left, you doofus." The voice didn't come from the whispers in the air. It was sharp, real, and very annoyed. Arjun didn't argue. He veered left, crashing through a curtain of hanging vines. He tumbled into a small clearing hidden behind a massive, hollowed-out tree trunk. "Get down." A hand grabbed the collar of his shirt and yanked him into the shadows. Arjun hit the dirt. his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. A few feet away, the jungle floor groaned. Through a gap in the roots, Arjun saw it. It wasn't a monster made of fur and claws. It was a stone stalker, a creature made entirely of moss-covered boulders held together by glowing blue light. It stood 10 feet tall, its head a jagged rock with 3 glowing eyes that swept the jungle like searchlights. It let out another roar, a grinding sound of stone against stone, and then lumbered past, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. Arjun waited until the blue light faded. He turned to his savior. Standing there was a girl, maybe a year older than him. She wore a vest made of woven grass and had a streak of silver paint across her nose. In her hand, she gripped a spear made of polished driftwood with a tip that hummed with the same blue light as the map. "You're new," she said, tapping her spear against the ground. "And you're loud. Are all outsiders this bad at sneaking?" I just got here," Arjun panted, sitting up. "The boat, the lake, the map." "The map," the girl's eyes narrowed. She looked at his backpack. "You have the compass map, the real one." Arjun slowly pulled the folded parchment from his bag. The girl gasped, her tough exterior melting for a split second. "My name is Alara," she whispered, looking at the map with something like hunger. "I've been stuck on the Whispering Island for 3 moons. We thought the map was lost when the archive fell." "Stuck?" Arjun's stomach did a somersault. "You mean I can't just go back the way I came?" Alara laughed, a short, dry sound. "The boat only travels one way, Arjun. To get home, you don't need a boat. You need the Whisper Key." She pointed her spear toward the center of the island, where a jagged mountain pierced the purple clouds. A faint, golden light pulsed at the very peak. "But there's a problem," Alara added, her voice dropping. "The High Shadow knows you're here. He felt the map cross the threshold. That stone stalker wasn't just wandering, it was hunting you." Suddenly, the map in Arjun's hand began to vibrate. The ink shifted again. New lines drew themselves, forming a path that led directly toward the mountain. But across the path, a giant red symbol appeared, a skull wrapped in shadows. "What does that mean?" Arjun asked, his voice trembling. Alara gripped her spear tighter. "It means the whispers are warning us. The path is guarded. If we're going to reach the mountain, we're going to need more than just bravery." She looked Arjun up and down, then sighed. "We're going to need the cook." "The cook?" Arjun asked. "Is he a great warrior?" "No," Alara said, starting to move silently through the trees. "He's a talking lemur with a magical frying pan, but he's the only one who knows the secret tunnels. Come on, move, before the trees start talking back." Arjun scrambled to his feet. He looked at the map, then at the strange, beautiful, dangerous world around him. He wasn't in his grandmother's attic anymore. "Hey, Alara," he called out softly. "What?" "Is the lemur friendly?" Alara didn't look back. "Only if you like spicy mangoes. Otherwise, watch your fingers." "Should we keep going? If you want part 3, just let me know if you want to." "Meet the cook and see his explosive kitchen." "Encounter the High Shadow's scouts." "Find a hidden power within the map."